This is offense for defense. Essentially, this is a quick presentation on a subset of a training that I'm doing for Antisyphon and a Wild West Hack and Fest coming up soon. So dive right in. I'm going to be completely honest with everybody, and I am absolutely terrible at slides. Um, I've taken Udemy courses, like I've watched great presenters on how to make like a good presentation, and my brain just can't do it very well. So most of the slides that you're going to see are going to be done very essentially poorly, but it's almost like their only existence is to just remind me what to talk about. So pay little attention actually to what's on the screen and let's have, more of like a discussion in my voice and whatnot, and that's where all the information will come through for the presentation. I'm not just going to read you bullet points the entire time, except for on this slide, which is my one semi-professional slide. I am a consultant at Red Siege. I have been in IT since 2006. That picture of me in the right was the last time I had a professional headshot taken, so that's why we include that on the slide here. I've been a pen tester for about 4 years. I, for some reason, got a master in computer science. I have some certifications. You can follow me on Twitter if that's your thing. I will happily answer any questions that someone asks me about any of this content, cybersecurity, or penetration testing in general. And then lastly, if you're a part of any like educational institute, if you're a teacher, if you work, on some kind of cyber team or a youth, whatever, I will speak to your students or your class or your group, and I will do it for absolutely free. If you want to fly me out on site, you got to pay for that. But digitally, I will speak to literally anyone and everyone about cybersecurity and all of the above for nothing. Like we talked about earlier, I just really like doing this. So happy to be a part of it, wherever I can. So I'm a consultant at Red Siege, which essentially makes me a penetration tester, which is the worst job title for what might be the coolest job on the planet. So feel free to not call me a penetration tester, at adversary simulation, threat emulation. I'm just a hacker. Like I said, literally anything else. So 90% of what I do is I'm hands on keyboard and I am hacking away at our clients, for whatever they ask us to do, an assortment of different types of testing. I work for a company called Red Siege, which if you're here, you're very familiar with Black Hills, and we are kind of like a sister company to Black Hills. We do a lot of the same work. We all hang out together. We share tooling, but essentially we are a consulting firm. So I will talk about several times throughout this presentation about I will mention clients or our customers or something along those lines. And those are people that hire us for X amount of time to perform X amount of services. So not everybody is going to understand like the kind of like that consultant setup. But for those of you that are pen testers or blue teamers for like a normal organization, right? Where your business is not pen testing, your business is insurance or hospitals or banking or whatever. When I talk about clients or customers, that's going to be your business or your IT department, whichever you feel like your cybersecurity section serves. So a lot of the things, like while yes, I'll say client, the concepts will transfer over directly to wherever in business that you may lie. Lastly, if you haven't noticed already, the last little bit about me is I talk really fast. So when I sat down and did this presentation like by myself, I knew it was probably going to take me about 45 to 50 minutes. Because I'm just talking to out into the world by myself, I'm probably gonna come way under because I'm here, I'm excited, and there's nobody to like when I'm presenting live to put your hand up and be like, hey, will you please slow down? So we're gonna probably get done a little early, but I'm gonna do my best to fill all the time I can, and then I'll be happy to answer questions at the end. If it gets real bad, like I said, come off backstage someone and be like, hey, Jason, can you just say the last three slides again? Because nobody understood what you were talking about because you just went way too fast. But ultimately, the why, throughout my 4 years of pen testing, we see a lot of the same issues, with our clients. We talk about, if you've seen any, pen tester 101 or any presentation about common, things that are found, it's things like passwords, it's things like file shares, it's things like, basic misconfigurations that are missed across a lot of our clients. And I wanted to put together this offense for defense course and this webcast and the trainings and whatnot, because I wanted to be able to teach our blue team friends a lot of this really, I don't want to say basic, but a lot of like the simple stuff that can have a very high impact on their environments. Where if you do these couple things that I, as a pen tester, do when I'm first starting out, that you can eliminate a lot of the low hanging fruit in your environment. And with that low hanging fruit gone in your environment, you're a little bit safer. And then if you hire a consultant pen tester like me, then I don't have any of those easy, quick wins anymore. That I'm able to immediately go into the advanced stuff, which selfishly is what I like doing. And then for our clients, obviously they're paying for my time, that they're not paying me to go through the simple stuff. They're paying me for the knowledge that I've built up over the years and Red Siege's methodology has built up so that we can actually do the important work. We can do deep dives. We can really dive in to their infrastructure and make things happen. So there's the attacker mindset, where for those of you that before I became a pen tester, I worked in a blue teamy type role. Like I did network security. I was kind of paired with the incident response team a little bit. And I remember what it was like to live in that role. And a lot of times that we would get really caught up as defenders, with a certain mindset, that we essentially we had to service our business, so functionality was kind of was always the business's number one, right? Like cybersecurity is not a revenue generator. So we are in the mindset of, yeah, we make the world more secure, but we can't cost our business anything. Having the attacker mindset, especially as a consultant, obviously I don't want to denial of service any of our clients, but I also want to make sure that they know upfront the full impact of the things that I find so they can take it to their business and say, hey, we should maybe change this up. So when thinking about the attacker mindset, I, as an attacker, people say the word lazy, right? Like we always want the shortest path to victory. If you look in the news, you think about like the MGM hack, that happened, a while ago. It began with a phishing phone call to their help desk. And we'll talk about some social engineering later, but ultimately, instead of the kid in London that called the help desk, he didn't spend all of these hours writing this crazy 0-day malware and figuring out how to bypass phishing and in all for delivery and all that jazz. He literally just picked up his phone and had a conversation, and someone handed him the keys to the kingdom. That was how that initial access looked like. And I, as an attacker, have the exact same mindset. Why do I need to pull off some crazy elite 0-day hack and burn it, for probably ever, if you've got plain text credentials on a file share that I can just use to log into whatever, and I can use that to escalate privilege. With the attacker mindset and understanding that the concept of thinking lazy and driving, and driving towards victory is never the right word, but driving towards the most impact for our clients. We say the word win as pen testers a lot. And for me, it's not win in the sense that, hey, I beat you. It's win in the sense that, like, hey, I found this before an actual bad guy did. So I don't hate Microsoft Excel. That's not why I've got this big X over it. But if I remember from my blue teamy days, there's always some kind of project manager who had some crazy Microsoft Excel document that would try to prioritize what we were working on. There was a risk registrar that had a bunch of things that didn't not matter is not the right way to say it, but I felt were less important than other things. Like I won't say what company it was, but there was a certain section of our environment where we only had 8-character passwords. which if you've ever done any kind of password spraying or cracking, 8 character passwords is not nearly as long as what it should have been. But that wasn't a priority for us because somebody with a weird risk registrar said that, these software updates need to take priority, or the ACLs need to be changed in firewalls, or whatever you want to call it, right? The priority I felt like wasn't where it should have been. And when you have that attacker mindset and you learn that why, instead of sitting around in meetings and like theoretically talking about, well, what happens if, an attacker gets access to our environments? Like, what happens if this system gets compromised? You can actually take some of these activities and these tools that I'm going to talk about, and you can go do them. And then you can take the results of that to your leadership, and you can say, hey, I did this, and while I did this, I was able to become a domain admin because there was a password on a file share, or because this was misconfigured and I could, pull hashes off of it. And this is something that our domain admins log into on a regular basis. It's no longer theoretical. You have a real proof of concept that you can take to your leadership and be like, hey, this is a big deal. And here's why. Here's the screenshot of what I could do in 2, 3, 4 hours, half a day, whatever you want to call it. So when thinking about the attacker mindset, we always start with the external footprint. So if you're going to emulate an attacker and begin down your path of being a defensive person doing some offense, you should always start with basic reconnaissance. So not only as an attacker am I trying to find the shortest path to, winning, quote unquote, but I am trying to pick if I'm like a ransomware actor, I am going to pick who's a low-hanging fruit, like as a company. So I like when I'm doing external penetration tests for a client, I can scan their external network and take a look at it. And a lot of times before I even do anything internally, I can already tell what it's going to look like. Because if I'm doing an external pen test and I do that first scan, and there's all kinds of services that shouldn't be exposed to the internet, if there's, like web directories that have sensitive content in it that I can download, I know that based on their external footprint, their security posture is probably not what it should be. So I know that if I get internally, I'm going to have a really good time, because there's no way that their internal network is way secure and their external is not. That's a very rare pairing there. So you can learn what your external footprint looks like. You can determine if you are low hanging fruit, and then you can see what an attacker sees, not just from a technical aspect, but also from like a social aspect. You can get on, go on that later. And then also, lastly, doing external recon is typically a low technical requirement. A lot of these tools that we talk about, or that I use, are not the most advanced. I mean, they're very cool tools, like this Bbot tool by Black Lantern Security is a really awesome tool. It does a huge amount of enumeration. It does it automatically. It finds services, it finds subdomains, it spiders out, it does whatever. But actually setting it up and running it is pretty simple. It's a really cool tool, really high value. Take that with you. Beginning your recon, use something like that, to get yourself started. Same thing with a tool like Shodan. If you've never used Shodan before, you're honestly missing out. It's a very inexpensive tool. Bbot was free, by the way. Thank you, Black Lantern Security, for that. Shodan costs a little bit of money. You can catch them on a Black Friday sale and get like a lifetime pass for, I think it goes down to like $10 or something. But Shodan's cool just to have to play around with. You can search for like exposed webcams in Italy or something, like go find beaches and companies or whatever else you want to do. But you could take tools like Bbot and then find what's out there, or a tool like Shodan, and then have it look at your external network range. You'd be like, oh, wow, like look what's already cached about my company on the internet. And it's like, oh, wow, if I can go out and see this stuff, then the actual bad guys can too. So you've done the Shodan, you've got a pretty good footprint. So actually then dive in and use Nmap. Nmap is not just an attacker tool. Nmap is a really cool utility that has a bajillion different functions. So for example, right now, if you went and did an Nmap scan of redsiege.com, we for some reason have a MySQL service exposed to the internet. I can't tell you why. We don't use MySQL for anything. Nothing in our company. Like we don't have a MySQL server set up. So chances are this is probably some, I think we've got like a CRM platform that exists, um, on our website there that like our marketing guy uses. So it's there, but ultimately there's a MySQL service there. Like I don't know why. And I say that because as a blue teamer, a lot of times we're not really fully aware of our external footprints. We don't fully know what services are exposed to the internet. We know what should be exposed to the internet, but with especially if you work at a mid to large size organization that have multiple development teams and priorities and is sometimes you can find that, well, for example, I was doing an external pen test recently and there's RDP exposed to the internet. That's not good because that, if I'm able to find credentials somehow, either by password spraying or dark web breaches or phishing someone, I can now just immediately RDP into their environment and I can take control of, whatever machine is inside and have all kinds of fun. So use something like Nmap, make sure that you know which of your services are exposed to the internet. You talk about like the social engineering pieces. There's a really cool tool, phonebook.cz, where they just kind of go out and they're just scouring for email addresses. And if I'm trying to fish my way into an organization, a lot of times this is the first site that I go to. And for CIA.gov, there's a whole bunch of CIA websites there. And I can now use this as like a beginning point to launch my phishing campaign. I don't have to do guesswork, right? Like I know these are email addresses that are identified at some point. And yeah, there's a little bit of cleanup. Like chances are, spook at CIA.gov or root at CIA.gov doesn't actually deliver to anybody, but maybe Ronnie Ballin at CIA.gov actually does. So I now have Ronnie's email that I could use to, send a phishing campaign and yada, yada, yada. Another really cool tool that I use for that is hunter.io. And Hunter is a marketing tool. So they actually make their money. A phonebook.cz is free. Hunter.io is a paid tool where this is for people that do like cold calling. Oh, I want to reach out to as many people as this company as I can, or I want to see someone's name and their job title so I can email them and sell them this product. So to be honest, hunter.io might be the most evil tool I talk about this entire time because that's what's causing us to get random spam emails like, hey, signed up for my Calendly and get a $20 gift card, right? And in case you're curious how effective it is, hunter.io has 5,317 email addresses for FBI.gov. Very effective tool. If you don't use this one, there's a whole bunch of other ones out there. I think we pay like $15 a month or something for this to have access to it. Relatively inexpensive. Fit that your blue team's budget. Run it on yourself every once in a while. Between that and phonebook.cz, you can see which your email addresses are linked and kind of figure out who's the target. Don't forget about all this cool stuff too, like all these social medias. My favorite thing to do when I'm doing a physical engagement is I'm just gonna like get on the company's Facebook and I'm going to see who works there and what they're posting. And can I find a picture of their inside of their office? Can I find a picture of a badge? Can I get on their GitHub and see if there's like repos out there? Is there an Instagram page where they're posting news updates about, hey, we have a big thing with this company next Wednesday? And can I use that as a pretext for whatever engagement I'm doing? So as you're working through your recon, there's a couple goals that you should take with you. Definitely test all of your points of ingress. You want to know if you have RDP exposed to the internet. Should you? You should not. Test it, see what it looks like. If you got a VPN, make sure that it's configured correctly. That's only doing things like allowing your assets to connect via that VPN portal. Check all kinds of like conditional access policies. What's a Uh-oh. I think my headset just died. One second. Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah, we hear you now.
Okay.
You good?
Oh, yeah. Okay. See, we talked about those instructor blips. See, I'm used to having my headset with the microphone. And so because I'm actually talking through my fancy mic over here, my headset died. But you can't I can't hear anything anyways because I'm talking and no one's talking back.
Yeah, you're all good, man.
Yeah.
Have fun.
Appreciate it. All right. So recon goals. I guess I can unplug this then so it didn't actually die. Um, recon goals. Yeah, so test your points of ingress, things like conditional access policies. A really cool way to bypass a lot of multi-factor authentication is if someone has an intra conditional access policy configured for MFA, it's probably for Windows only. So if you like pull out your Kali machine and you're able to get creds and you try to log in, you can essentially bypass MFA because they don't have it enforced correctly. So as a defender, you can now test this stuff, right? So test all your points of ingress, all kinds of ways. When you get into looking at some of your social medias and email addresses, you can really figure out like which one of your users are at risk. And then you can try to prioritize them in your, like cybersecurity scale, if you will. Ugh. Social engineering is honestly one of my favorite things to do. And I feel like every blue teamer should add this to their own repertoire. Vishing. Vishing is really cool because it is extremely low risk with extremely high reward. And I mean that. So anybody with a telephone can pick up the phone and can call your help desk. And you may think like, hey, my help desk is internal. How are they going to get that number? The best way that I get a help desk phone number is I call literally any randomly posted phone number a company has, and I just act completely lost. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. My name is Billy Wilkins. It's my first day of work. I was trying to get to the help desk. I have no idea how I got here. People love to help people, right? So, oh, Billy, thanks for working at our company. Like, I'm so sorry that you're lost. Here's our help desk. Oh, thank you, right? And I now have this internal number that I can call. And so I'll now call the help desk and hey, if I can make a call to the help desk like that kid did with MGM and just have someone give me domain admin credentials, like why do I got to do all the hard stuff? So very low risk stuff to do with a very high reward as an attacker. And it's not, and if you burn a phone number, right? Like there's 13 apps on my phone. I can just make a new phone number and I can do it very quickly. Um, and you can't break anything. It's not like if you were playing around an internal network and running some tools that you could like knock a switch offline or heaven forbid, do something crazy like bring down a domain controller. You can't break anything with a telephone. I mean, I guess theoretically, right? But you haven't really been able to like freak anything and take anything down in a long time. So pick up your phone, call your help desk, and take that time to really evaluate all of your policy, your processes, and your procedures. Because you can sit down and you can work with your customer facing folks, your help desk, and they can be like, yeah, you are supposed to authenticate every caller. And before you do something like um, before you do something like reset someone's MFA, this is the process and procedure that you are supposed to follow. I did a vishing exercise once where I called a local credit union, and the goal was it was to steal money and to see if I could pull that off. And I very quickly I found that your front level the CSR, your customer service agent, the first person that picking up the phone would force me to authenticate. Like, sorry, I can't share that with you. You need to authenticate. They did very well with that. But what I found is if I talked to that first person and I immediately just asked for a transfer to a higher department, hey, I called in earlier about this credit fraud. I need to get back to this department. That they assumed that because I was getting transferred, that was already authenticated. And so I was able to circumvent their where I found this error in their process. I was able to circumvent it and get transferred back to a tier one associate who assumed that I was authenticated, and they allowed me to steal money from that bank. So that was a really cool story. But ultimately, the point is like you have all the written policy, process, and procedure down that you want. But if it's not being followed and if it's not enforced in a way that makes sense all the time, that someone's going to eventually find a hole, and that person that finds that hole hopefully should be you instead of actual bad guy. And the extra pro tip, one of the things that defeats me on phishing engagements all the time is a published business directory and doing things like, hey, before I reset your multi-factor authentication, we need to call your manager. And don't allow that person to give their manager's phone number. Look it up in the business directory and call that manager and get them on the phone. I know it's a hard swallow for some of your all's businesses, especially because, that means that someone's not working in the time that it takes for these resets to happen. But man, a good business directory that's followed kind of kicks my butt every time. So phishing, right? Phishing is an extremely common initial access method. It's not as easy as it used to be, but it's still extremely common. And if you are going to do a phish, you'll figure out very quickly that it's kind of low effort. And that's why we see so much of it, that someone can, or an attacker, an actual bad person can set up a phishing infrastructure pretty quickly. And then they can email a ton of people. Chances are it's going to get burnt, and it's going to get burnt pretty quickly. But in that short time, you can still touch a whole lot of users with a phishing campaign. And I'm fairly sure that pretty much every company does some kind of phishing training at this point. If it's at least, hey, it's part of your agreement of working here. Here's 5 bad things to look for in an email. Don't do that. But ultimately, at some point, a user is going to fail. It's inevitable all the time. No one's perfect. I fish for a living, borderline, and I have clicked bad phishing emails. I'm like, oh, damn, I probably shouldn't have clicked that. It wasn't what I thought it was. It's the right day, the right pretext on the right time with the right amount of lack of sleep, right? And then boom, I've clicked that, and now I could have essentially got. And so it gives you an opportunity to test your other security controls that should be in place to not allow your users to fail, your clients to fail. So if someone clicks a link, do we have link inspection? Is it working correctly? By actually launching a phishing campaign, you can do that and test what it looks like and then see what happens when someone inevitably fails. The phishing itself, it's if you're allow listing your own campaign, it's actually really simple, right? So you can do something like you buy a domain, you can sign up for a Microsoft Business account, which is like $6 a month, very low entry. And it takes care of like your DMARCs and your DKIMs and all that jazz. Allow listed on your secure email gateway. Or if you don't, it's a good way to test and make sure that your secure email gateway is enforcing properly. Like, did you in fact have it deny all emails that come from a domain that's less than 90 days old? You should probably, but you could test that kind of stuff. So you got it. You got your email address through a business account with all your DMARC and DKIM set up, and you're ready to go. They have a good pretext. Then pick out whatever method that you want, and then just fire it off. And once you hit that send button, like everything happens in the background. Like now you just sit back and wait. Like, is a user gonna report this email? Are they gonna click it? If they click it, what happens? Like, how you can track results, you can do all that good stuff. So definitely track everything when you're doing that phishing. How many users did you send to? Give them multiple reporting options. And that's not just for phishing, that's for vishing too. If there's a suspicious phone call that comes in, like give them, like make sure they know what to do. And then lastly, like never embarrass anybody. You can if someone falls victim to a like pretend social engineering campaign from you all or from your internal team or whoever, you can call them out, you can embarrass them, or you can very easily turn this person into like a champion. Be like, hey, just let you know, you fell for this. Here's the impact that it has on our company. Should this phishing campaign been real? Here's why it's important, and we need your help to make sure that your coworkers don't fall for this stuff. So don't embarrass them. Make them feel like they're involved. one thing that I like to say is in the old days, like if you were a nurse, like you focused on healthcare. And then throughout time became like things like electric charting. And so every nurse is now also a little bit of an IT person, right? Like they got to know how to work the computer and log in and probably print stuff and whatnot. And I think we're segueing into a phase of life where now everybody is also a little bit of a security person. You just can't be security ignorant and do almost any job these days. So make them champions, get them involved. I say me saying that is easy. Executing it in the real life, I'm sure is difficult. I don't envy you guys in that regard, but good luck. Take the time either with shoulder engineering campaigns, identify those gaps, find out, evaluate those methods for reporting. What happens when your user gets compromised? Like if someone downloads malware and executes it from a phishing campaign, does your EDR catch it? Does your exfil, filter catch stuff? Does Cisco Umbrella or whatever you've got stop link inspection and stop you from someone even clicking something? Use all that stuff. It's a great way to really test those controls to make sure that they're working properly. File shares. Mike Saunders, who's the principal consultant at Red Siege, sometimes defines us as file archaeologists, where we spend a whole lot of time going through file shares. And if your companies are doing anything when they're starting to like use AI and have like these huge data lakes of stuff that AI is going to use, I'm honestly salivating at the thought of those based on the amount of times that I find useful stuff on file shares. So file shares are important because amidst all your great security controls, chances are there's plain text credentials that exist on your network somewhere. Somebody in IT on an IT share or HR or whatnot has like a passwords.txt file somewhere, and it's the keys to something important. And if you don't have, the right controls in place, you'll eventually get burnt. Also, if someone does manage to get access to your internal infrastructure, everyone's big focus these days is on ransomware. They're gonna launch ransomware and they're gonna take down our environment and they're gonna hold us hostage. I did a test for a law firm recently where all of their file shares were open to everyone else in the company. And I'm like, hey, like I got a low privileged user. I don't need to escalate any further. Sure, I can't launch any ransomware, but I already have access to all of the data, all of your clients' data, all of your, secret, SEC information, all of that's like I can just go get it. And now that I have it, well, now I'm holding you hostage regardless. I just don't need ransomware to do it. So if I've got it all, do I need to ransomware? Probably not. So file shares, important. We can work on them. There's a really cool tool called Snaffler. And what Snaffler does is you launch it on a Windows machine via LDAP. It will go through and it does a bunch of enumeration and identifies all the file shares that exist on within your environment. And then it's going to try to access all those file shares. And then after it accesses all those file shares, it's going to try to through a whole bunch of like regex, basically, it's going to find like, oh, this file has admin in it, or it has the word password in it. It's going to pull out all that good stuff. It's going to spit out a report that is painful to read, but very useful. And then you can go through and be like, oh, instead of me having to go through and click all these folders individually and check all these text documents by hand, I can just run this tool. It'll take several hours. And now you've got this report like, oh, well, yeah, there are a lot of web.config files in our environment that contain plain text credentials in them. We should probably clean those up, or we should check that authentication. Snaffler is a really great tool. Even though they wrote right here that it's specifically not meant to be an audit tool, I think it's a really good audit tool. But I'm a pen tester, not a blue team guy. So it works great. I would use it if I was still on the blue side, and it's great. Similar tool, ManSpider. This is more of like a traditional like network pen testy tool. I use this for kind of like non-assumed breaches where I only have access to a Linux machine. where I can just hit a specific network range. I can specify, what username and password I want to use, if any. I can set the specific threads that I want to look for. Really intuitive tool, similar to Snaffler. You kind of see like I'm scared to do demos. Like I kind of want to demo some of this stuff, but I was scared to do it live because, well, if I mess up, everyone gets to laugh at me, right? So I took the screenshots. Yeah, MedSpider, great tool. Give it a shot in your environment and see what it can find. But ultimately, your goal should be that you want no plain text credentials that exist in your environment, period. You also want to make sure that the proper access control is set up. Does Debbie in HR have permission to the IT share? Does Sarah in IT have access to the HR share where they can see everybody's payroll information? Should they have access to that stuff? Probably not. Uh, there's a lot of really cool like honeypot tricks that you can easily do with file shares. So if you set up a file share on a machine that no one was going to access for any reason, and then set up an alert, hey, someone connected to this machine on port 445. There's no legitimate user that does that. We've got something screwy going on. Purposely leave a passwords.txt file out there with an account that no one actually uses. Hey, we just had a login from this account that no one uses. There's something weird going on. Someone found our honeypot file and is trying to log into stuff. Really good ways to catch attackers. And I've been caught kind of doing the same thing where I found a honeypot file, was like, haha, I'm DA now, I got you. Turns out they were smarter than me, and that's exactly what it was. It's also an opportunity to check your networking controls. A great way to stop people from scanning file shares is like if a user is connecting on port 445 to 30 different machines across 5 minutes, there's no way that's normal user activity. Someone is like actively spidering your stuff and looking for information. Passwords. Uh, to be honest, I could talk for like the next hour about passwords and why we think they're good and why they're kind of bad and why they should be better and how we can make them better and what we should be trying and password managers and all that jazz. But I didn't want to beat passwords to death ultimately because I feel like a lot of you all already know like bad passwords will eventually be your downfall. If push come to shove, if you've done everything great in your environment and you have a strong your external footprint is cleaned up and you don't look like low-hanging fruit and you've done all the good stuff and whatever else, if you've got a domain admin whose passwords like summer 2023 exclamation point that follows something like that, or because they work in IT, they don't want to follow by the same, well, no one's going to steal my password, so it doesn't matter. It's you can still get got. So at some point your users are going to fail. And it goes back to not just attackers are lazy, but like sometimes people are lazy anyways. So they'll do things like keyboard walks, like 1QAZ, 2WSX, 3EDC will be their password, which seems really unique and awesome, but it's just like the left side of your keyboard just going in one order. And anybody that's doing password cracking, spraying, those kinds of attempts, keyboard walks and things like that, where people think they're being clever, is pretty common knowledge for someone that's, trying to steal passwords and do whatever for a borderline living. So a great offensive tool that you can start using is THC Hydra. It's got built-in functionality for all kinds of services. You can use this tool, you can spray all the things. You see the full list there. So you got, different web forms. It supports HTTP. I know most of you all probably have FTP in your environments. You can hit FTP, all this good stuff here. THC Hydra is a very cool advanced tool. It's also free, lives on GitHub. Give it a shot, spray all the things. Hashcat is like the number one tool that I use for cracking passwords. I think that's pretty much industry standard that we just live and die in Hashcat. It's a great utility. If you've ever wondered, what it's like to crack passwords, one of the ways that you can defeat weak passwords in your environment is, hey, you're an IT admin, right? Like go to your domain controller and dump your own hashes. Uh, Put it on the machine that's completely segmented on your network, and then start cracking your user hashes. And it's a very, I mean, you'll spend a couple $1,000 on a decent cracking machine, but in the grand scheme of things, like if this is something that just runs in the background all the time, and you're just cracking weak passwords, oh hey, we cracked this password. We should email this user and tell them to change it, right? And you force that password change. It allows you to get in front of an attacker that's going to do the same thing. And with activities like password spraying and password cracking, these are not time intensive in the sense that it's going to take you a ton of time to do this cracking. That you can by yourself you can take 30 seconds, you can set the crack to run, you can let it run for a couple days, and then check back in. Oh, hey, 7 days in the background, we identified 3 users that had weak passwords. Let's force that change. Let's make them make their password stronger. It's a really cool website, weakpass.com. And it's got a whole bunch of different word lists that you can go and download so that you don't have to like try to make these up. Check out weakpass.com. Grab those word lists, pair them with something like Hashcat or Hydra, and test all the passwords that you can before an actual attacker does. So you definitely want to make sure. I see this all the time where I'll get inside of an environment and it'll be pretty locked down, but then they'll have something like the tool that manages all their virtual machines will have a manufacturer default password still in place where they never changed it. So like admin and then like admin1 is how I was able to access this utility. So take the time, spray these passwords, use the common iterations, admins, admin passwords, password, whatever you want to call it, use all that stuff. Make sure there's no defaults that are in place. Make sure that your critical services have extra strong passwords. Like if they're service passwords, like no one's typing them by hand, um, there's no reason for that password to be 12 characters. That password should be 30 characters. It should be borderline uncrackable should someone, get a hold of that stuff. It's a great opportunity to test and make sure that you have lockout timers, both on your external facing service and on your internal facing service. If you've got like an FTP service that's facing externally, I can sit there and spray it forever. I can put it in the background on my machine. I can watch every season of The Wire, and I can potentially spray a successful password in the background, right? But if you add a lockout timer where after 5 failed attempts and everything, um, it bans me for 24 hours. Sure, it might make someone have like a mild IT headache to have to go in and reset these passwords every once in a while, but it will kill someone trying to spray passwords. If I'm trying to spray 10,000 accounts and I get locked out for 24 hours after 5 failed attempts, it's going to take me years. I can almost watch Game of Thrones, right? In that amount of time. um, and definitely alerting, right? Like your goal should be to identify where these failed login attempts are happening. Is someone trying to log into something over and over and over? And who's getting alerted? How are we finding out? Actually test those controls to make sure that they're in place properly. Active Directory, the more I learn about it, the more messed up I learn that it is. And the more crazy I can look at environments, but I can't believe that this is configured that the way it is. So I don't envy you all that work at large corporations and have like this huge spaghetti Active Directory, and you have someone like me that comes into your environment and says, "Hey, just want to let you know that standard user has generic all over this group, and that this group is actually an admin to a machine where your domain admins log in every day. So I now have hashes for your domain admins because you have an Active Directory misconfiguration here." Um, painfully fun, painfully fun. So a lot of attackers these days, like we're the days of I'm scanning your internal network and I'm popping an exploit on some kind of box and I'm using that box to escalate, popping another exploit to escalate. Uh, we don't see that very often these days. Most of the ways that we win is finding Active Directory miscommunicate or misconfigurations. And it allows someone that got it, like took advantage of a low privilege user to escalate all the way to DA pretty quick if those misconfigurations are bad enough. And a lot of times, like these actions are taking place over LDAPs, which LDAPs is secure LDAP, and it's normal traffic. People are interacting with the domain controller all the time, every time they authenticate, right? Like it's going through that process. It's doing its thing. So it's able to do these attacks and go undetected. I can hide in plain sight. There's a really awesome tool called Bloodhound, and there's a assortment different versions of it. But what Bloodhound does is it it uses like this graph theory. So like this is I didn't want to try to clean up a Bloodhound image, so I stole one off the internet of someone's like test lab. But like this right here shows that this alleged Steve Draper user is a member of this lab group, and this lab group has admin over all of the machines that you see there on the right. And so if I can, you can use a tool to ingest all of the Active Directory information. There's a bunch of different tools that do that, like Sharpound, etc. Or if you're running it legitimately, you can just kind of like import stuff into it. And then Bloodhound will draw this big map. So you can see like, hey, from Steve and HR, draw me a map to everything that he's got access to. And then you kind of like follow that map along, like with this GUI that's in front of you. And it gives you a really good and fun and kind of easy way to say, like, oh, well, turns out, John from HR is 4 hops away from a domain admin. If I log into this machine as John and I can grab this hash from this domain admin that or whoever, this developer that moves into this box all the time or supports that utility, I can now grab that user and I can escalate to here. And then, yeah, it's just really cool. It's a really awesome way to visualize what's going on with someone's Active Directory configuration and identify those misconfigurations. There's a really cool tool called Ping Castle that I have just recently started using. Their tagline is get Active Directory security at 80%, 20% of the time. And I believe that that's true. And so what Ping Castle would do is it'll run through and it grabs all your AD information. It spits you out a really cool report, like an actual useful, digestible report. Like, oh, hey, we found that these 10 users were Kerberoastable. Hey, we found that these domain admins are not in a protected users group. And it gives you all that in a really cool report. It assigns ratings for you. I know I started talking about the Excel spreadsheet and how like risk registrar and project managers are terrible. Ping Castle is the exception to that for me. I think it is really a really cool, useful tool. And it's mostly free. I think if they've got bonus features, if you're using it as a pen tester, like you got to pay for extra licensing, but it as it exists now, very cool tool. I would definitely use that, in your environments as often as possible. So with Active Directory goals, the path of least privilege, should always be the goal. That no one has any more privileges than they need to do their job, if that. Use something like Bloodhound, go through your AD hierarchy and make sure it's set up correctly, that it's a true tier, that no one's hopping above where they should be. And my favorite point that I've been on lately is just because someone's not a domain admin does not mean that they're not important, that they're not a target. If you work for a healthcare company and you've got a SQL server that has names, medical history, addresses, social security numbers, and it's all saved in a SQL database somewhere, I would say that your SQL admins are probably VIP users. And you should be able to identify those users, and they should be protected just as strongly as a domain admin. Because while domain admin is cool, having domain admin is really just a tool to get me to the good stuff. Getting control over an environment is, obviously, it's huge. Like gives me access to the world. But being able to access your company secrets is how you sell that stuff to your business, right? It's how you say, hey, it's a big deal because I'm able to access this stuff. Lastly, there's a bonus tool that I wanted to throw in. I didn't really have a section for it, but I wanted to talk about something called the Atomic Red Team. So if you're familiar with the MITRE ATT&CK framework, what it does is it examines like different threat actors all throughout time, and it categorizes all of the techniques, tactics, and procedures that they use. And so, like for example, you go to my attack website. I just hovered over this create or modify system process, and MITRE identifies all the different ways that have been observed that threat actors are doing this stuff. And what Atomic Red Team does is, if I match that T1543 with T1543 here. And so with Atomic Red Team, what it does is it provides you a playbook and gives you the opportunity to execute what they refer to as atomic tests to see if you are susceptible to any of these techniques, tactics, and procedures, TTPs. It's not a pen. This was not a pen test tool, but you are essentially emulating an attacker. Like you are running their known playbooks, and it's free. It's open source. There are thousands of these atomic tests that are out there. It's a really cool way to just start like, if you bought a new EDR, you want to know how effective it is, but you don't want to spend all the time building payloads or researching it, or you don't want to pay a pen tester, bro, grab the Atomic Red Team, run through some of these scenarios and just see, does it run? Do you get alerted? And the goals for that, your goal should be able to detect it all. And then it's also a chance to like test your SOC. Hey, we saw Microsoft Excel call out via HTTP to a .ru domain. How long did it take us to catch that? Did we catch that? If we caught it, how long did it take for us to respond, right? And so it's an opportunity to test that stuff. Same for if you've got an MSSP or new tools or whatever. An Atomic Red Team is all set up for you. It's a pretty low technical requirement. I'm not sure why I put that in the goal slide, but it is there. But yeah, it is low technical requirements, and should be using it as much as possible. So I actually did really good. I thought I was going to be way short on time, but that's it for me. I guess I can come off my screen share real quick and answer a couple questions if we've got them. Wait, hold on. I got to turn my headset back on though because it turned off again, but I didn't freak out this time.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Awesome. It's working. Good job, man. Appreciate you
Thank
being
you.
here and sharing that,
Yeah.
dude. It's fantastic. So if somebody wants to learn more about this specific topic, where can they find where you're going to be next with this class? Because you're going to be
So
diving deep into this topic really in your class.
yeah. Yeah. So I realized when I stopped my screen share that the capitalist slide went away, right? That was the important one. So I am teaching this class at Wild West Hack and Fest. I am fairly sure that the class is sold out right now, but we will be doing it again at the Mile High Wild West Hack and Fest, and it'll eventually be an on-demand course through Antisyphon, which is really cool. Thank you all for that opportunity. And so basically the hour that I kind of turboed through stuff right now, it's actually a full-on 16-hour course. So we really deep dive into some of this stuff, and there's way more tools and techniques that we talk about. And we give you a really cool lab where you can actually, instead of me just like showing you one slide, you can get in and play with this stuff. So I'm really excited to like release this course to the world. And yeah, I think it's gonna be a good time for everybody.
I think you guys are doing a virtual, so we can,
Mhm.
if anybody's interested, you can all sign up for the virtual class at Wild West Hack and Fest still. So registration still is open for virtual attendees. So if anybody here is wanting to attend this, the full 16-hour class, I put the link in the Discord chat. You guys can find that, and you can sign up and join Jason for that live class in October,
Awesome. Yeah, it's gonna be a good
October
time.
8th and 9th.
Yeah, I'll be there. And
I'll be there soon.
even if you don't want to take my class, like still come to Iowa's Hacking Fest and like let's high five and hang out, right? That's a good time too. Big fan.
Except it's sold out now. So if you didn't get your
Huh.
ticket, you'll have to join us for Wild West Hack and Fest in Denver, which is going to be February 5th through the 7th.
Yep.
So that one's not sold out yet. So get your tickets.
Cool.
That's me doing all my selling that I
Right,
can.
yeah. I mean, ultimately, we got to generate some kind of business, right? Because otherwise, as much as we like giving back to the world for free, yeah, at the end of the day, like someone's got to pay my salary.
Right.
So yeah, I hear you.
I just want to see people in person. It's like it's always
Yeah.
so cool to connect with people who like talk to on these anti-casts, or like I'm sure with you with your the Red Siege Wednesdays offensives, right? Like when you
Mhm.
actually get to like connect with those people who you've talked to uh in those live streams, like in person. It's just such a different feeling, man. So
Yeah. It's just way more
but that.
personal and like we can really collaborate and get stuff done. Uh, I'll never admit that to any kind of like boss because then they'll be like, "Hey, we should just all come back in an office." I'm like, "No, no, 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 not that much." Uh,
Yeah, no. I don't, yeah, no. I agree with you.
no.
So I have a few questions here, it looks like in Zoom. So I'll try to go through those. But if you see anybody throw a question in the chat, please feel free to go ahead and answer that. Um, and so does the AI buzzword pulling in millions for new security tools make you yawn or sit up and pay attention? And why would someone still choose offensive defensive as a career?
I don't, sorry, to the AI one, I don't think that's anything new. We've been hearing that for the better part of a decade now. It's just more front and center. But that's just my marketing like viewpoint on things. But I'll let you take it from there, Jason. I had to chime in on that.
Yeah, I mean, so my thought is like AI, it's really just a tool like anything else. Like I don't think that AI is going to replace us at least anytime soon, but I do kind of think that people that use AI will replace people that don't pretty quickly.
I like that. That's a good
Uh,
perspective.
like for example, I use Python at my job all the time, and I do know how to code some Python. I'm not good at it, but I know it. But if I'm on an engagement, and instead of spending 4 hours like writing this Python script to make it happen, I can write it in 45 seconds. It just makes me more efficient at what I'm already doing.
Yeah, that's a helpful tool, not a
Yeah,
replacement.
right.
Huh, I agree with you there. How can you people do automated link inspection?
There are a lot of utilities for that. Like I know if you use like Proofpoint has that stuff. Cisco Umbrella, I believe, has that built in. I don't know of any way to like hack that together on your own. But um, there are solutions out there that can do the automated link inspection. And what they do is like they basically click the link for you. If there's something that it downloads, it executes in the sandbox, makes sure it's clean and sends it back, or it follows the link and views the content of the page, see if there's anything malicious, and then if it passes, it allows the user to pass through to it. Yeah. Automated link inspection, I'm sure there's a way out there to do it that's not a utility that you got to pay for, but I just don't know that offhand. That's a good research point, though. I like that.
Sure. No, Kevin has a great question here that I think a lot of people in chat can actually potentially help with. So it's not just directed at you, Jason, but is it anybody know of or keep a list of all the most common and valuable red teaming tools they could share?
Man,
Oof.
Right.
there's so
It's a big
many.
one.
There's
Oh,
so many. And so you'll find like GitHub repositories every once in a while that'll have like 400 tools in it.
Mm.
Um,
Right.
and a lot of them are useful, but then like updating it and figure out who stopped developing and whatnot, like it's tough. I really I just like try to find your tribe, Antisyphon Discord, Red Siege Discord, follow people on Twitter, and people will talk about what they're using and when they're releasing new things. So just try to
yeah.
stay in the know is how I do it.
I almost feel like that, Zach, would be a fun yearly webcast or anticast that we could do. Like what are we currently like seeing in as far as tooling, red team tool, uh, that maybe new developments, because I know we're doing stuff all the time at BHIS,
Yeah.
but
I
that
mean
would be
that.
kind of a fun one to bring in like just a whole hodgepodge of the pen testers
No,
from
yeah.
like Red
So
Siege
yeah,
and BHIS. Yeah.
yeah, I would agree. And then I also have like some blue team, some people from the SOC
Yeah.
on too, talk about it from that
Yeah.
perspective. That would be
Or
so cool. I agree.
have it be a two-parter. That would be a blast to put
Yeah,
on.
I agree. We're gonna do it.
Tool Summit.
Tool Summit. There you go. Yeah, we could do that. I'm all on board for that, man.
Tool of the month. Oh my gosh, all these new great ideas.
Yeah.
Anti-cast tool time. Can we get like the theme song too from
Yeah,
Tool Time? That'd be
from
great,
Home Improvement. Yeah.
right? Yes, that'd be great. Let's see. Sorry, still going through questions here. This might be a long question or like answer potentially, but we'll see what you could do with it, Jason. How can a startup organization effectively integrate offensive tactics into their existing cybersecurity frameworks?
Ooh, I love that question. And that is an extremely long answer, right?
Where the hell you would start with that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I mean, so I encourage any blue teamer to at least spend the time monitoring and learning a little bit about pen tester methodology, because pen tester methodology is defined from emulating actual attacker methodology. And so of course the shameless self-promotion is you should take the offense for defense course, right? That's how you get started. But the real answer is like, read about what the bad guys are doing and then think about how you can emulate that behavior. In the beauty of it is because you're on the inside and you're already authenticated, a lot of the things that people are attackers are using isn't crazy complicated. It's the evading part that makes it complicated. It's like double clicking a Cobalt Strike beacon on a desktop is really easy to do. Doing it in a way that doesn't get caught by an AV and EDR solution is incredibly difficult. So figure out what the bad guys are doing, emulate that activity, and then do it in a way where you're not pulling your own hair out. I think is a great way to start.
Yes.
I think a lot of blue teamers that, especially in like companies that are just getting started and stuff, like the blue teamers, I mean, no offense to them, they're relatively new. Some of them don't have years of experience. So some of the very basic, easy to get used to type tools like Red Canary's Atomic Red Team, or what's the other ones that are out there? There's some of those like open source automated like red teams, just to get your hands dirty, just to jump in right off the bat and be like, let's play around with something that kind of comes with some pre-canned stuff, right? Not to sit there and be like, this is the end all be all, but like, if you're never have had any experience with like any sort of red teaming stuff, playing around with some of those types of things might be kind of helpful as well. I've heard some positive things from people just as a launching off point, not as an end all be all. I got to stress that pretty heavily.
Yeah, the next question I think it might have been from the same person because it kind of follows along with even the answers that you guys just gave. How do you ensure? Oh no, my screen just moved. Oh no, I was reading it and it disappeared. How do you ensure that offensive measures do not inadvertently expose vulnerabilities or create new risks?
Ooh. Well, so the first piece is if you're scanning your network and you're finding stuff, you're not exposing new vulnerabilities. You're just becoming aware of it. Um, obviously, like you don't want to like detonate any test ransomware in your environment. Like you got to have some restraints and really have like that true understanding of what the tool that you're doing is actually doing. And, if you don't feel comfortable and you don't understand what a tool is doing and you're not sure what it's going to do in your environment, that's when you should put the brakes on, right? Start out with something simple, learn how it works. I mean, like I've talked about like ManSpider. Here's what ManSpider does. It accesses a bunch of things on port 443. It enumerates what shares they've got access to, and then it looks for file names that match the criteria that you've set. Simple tool, simple process, good place to start. If you're not sure what information Bloodhound is pulling and how it's pulling, read the documents, right? Like learn what it's doing and make sure it's not going to impact anything. And have conversations like with your IT team. Because one time like I was doing like a network scan on an internal and I crashed a network switch. Turns out it wasn't because I was doing scanning activity. It's because they had logging activity on that switch set to the highest level. And so it was logging this huge amount of data. It was more data than the processor on the switch could handle, and it crashed. So as you're doing these activities, like coordinate with your IT teams, coordinate with your business, let them know, hey, I want to do this. When is it like low risk time that I can execute this behavior?
That's all excellent. Excellent advice, man. Appreciate that. I don't know how much time you have, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. You probably got to get ready for your Wednesday offensive here pretty soon. What is the best way for people to get a hold of you if they have more questions for you?
So I always tell people to add me on Twitter, but then I only check it like 5 days a year. So don't do that. I'm actually really active in Discord, specifically Red Siege's Discord, because if I'm not, then JCon will yell at me. So shameless self-promotion, redsiege.com/Discord. My name is JMFD, both on Twitter and in Discord. So like just ask us questions. And if I don't answer it, someone else will. You can add me on Twitter at Hack and Backpack, and I will eventually answer everything. It's just, will I answer it today or will I answer it like the first week of February? I can't provide you any guarantees there.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you being here and sharing your knowledge with us. For everybody who's still here, every single week on our Anticast, we do a breakout room where we have an AMA or an Ask Us Anything. So if you have the Zoom application installed on your device, the bottom of your screen there, you should see a little link for breakout room. In just a few minutes here, we're going to be joining that breakout room, and y'all are free to join that and ask us any questions that you have, whether that's about, certifications, about your learning journey, resume, or interview help. We are here to help you. So
I'm gonna head over there now. We got people pouring in already, so I'm gonna head
perfect.
over there, Zach.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. Jason, thank you so much for being here, man. Again, we again really do appreciate you sharing your knowledge with us, man. It's always so great to have instructors like you who are willing to come here and share their time with us and give, put the knowledge back into the world. So again, thank you so much. We're going to have you on again soon, I hope. We will see you at Wild West Hackin' Fest, which I'm super stoked about. So if y'all want to check out more of Jason, he gave you all the info that you need to follow him. Be sure to join the Red Siege Discord. Be sure to check out his class that's coming up this October at Wild West Hackin' Fest. And you have any parting words, my friend?
No, I think you pretty much said it all. But yeah, I really had a good time. And like I say, if you have any questions, reach out and look forward to seeing you all somewhere in the hacker world.
For sure, dude. Thank you so much. And I
All
will
right,
see
yeah.
you all next week, or I will see you in a couple minutes here in the breakout room. So take care, everybody, and have a good day.
All right.
Thanks, Jason.
No problem. Bye.